I didn't ask where, not immediately, because if there was one thing I had learned so far, it was this: Daniel never said anything without a reason. So if he said he already picked a place, then the real question wasn't where. It was why. What kind of place? I asked instead. He looked at me, just for a second, then he gave a small, almost amused smile. The kind, he said, that makes them come faster. That wasn't reassuring, but it was honest. He turned back to the device on the ground. Tapped the screen again. The dots shifted slightly, still surrounding us, still closing in. They're not rushing, he said. They're pacing themselves, like predators, waiting for the right moment. So we forced that moment, I said. He nodded once. Exactly. I crossed my arms slightly. And we survive it how? This time, he didn't answer right away. Because this time, there wasn't a clean answer. Finally, he said, we don't. I stared at him. What? He looked at me calmly. We don't survive by avoiding them, he clarified. We survive by learning from them. A pause, which means, he straightened slightly, we let them reach us. That was insane. You want to bait them? I said. He didn't deny it. They already know where we are, he said. They're just choosing when to act. So we take that choice away, I finished. He smiled slightly. Now you're thinking. I looked back at the screen. The dots. Closer now. Not much, but enough. Where? I asked again. This time, he answered. Your apartment. I froze. You're serious? He nodded. It's already compromised, he said. They've probably scanned it, logged it, marked it. A pause. So it's perfect. I exhaled slowly, because he was right. A place they already knew. A place they already expected. That's where they'd be most confident. And confidence creates mistakes. We go back, I said. He nodded. We go back. Silence filled the room again. But this time, it wasn't heavy. It was focused. We were done reacting. Now we were planning. I grabbed my jacket. Then let's move before they get too close. Daniel picked up the device. Turned it off. Too late for that, he said. My chest tightened. What do you mean? He looked at me, then said quietly. They're already close enough. We didn't run. That was the second decision. Running makes noise. Running creates patterns. Running shows fear. And right now, we couldn't afford any of that. So we walked. Calm. Steady. Just two people moving through the night. Like nothing was wrong. Like we weren't being hunted. But I could feel it now. That pressure again. Stronger. Closer. Not just watching. Closing in. We reached the street. No cars. No people. Too empty. This feels wrong, I said quietly. It is, Daniel replied. That didn't help. We kept moving. 1 block. 2. 3. Closer to my apartment. Closer to the trap. Then, a sound. Not loud. Not obvious. But wrong. A step. Behind us. I didn't turn. Didn't react. But I felt it. Someone was there. Don't look, Daniel said under his breath. Too late. Because I had already seen it. Not with my eyes, but with instinct. We weren't alone anymore. Another step. Closer. Then, a voice. Right behind us. Subject identified. My body went still. Engagement authorized. Daniel's hand moved slightly. Not panicked. Prepared. And then, he said the one thing that confirmed everything. Don't hold back. I didn't. Because the moment I turned around, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't surveillance anymore. This was contact. And whoever they sent, wasn't here to watch. They were here to test us. And I had a feeling. This test was going to decide whether I lived long enough. I turned, and barely had time to react. Something moved. Fast. Too fast. A blur of dark fabric in precise motion cut straight toward me. No warning. No hesitation. A strike meant to end it instantly. I shifted sideways on instinct. The attack missed my throat by inches. Close enough that I felt the air split. Not bad. The voice wasn't distorted anymore. Clear. Calm. And right behind me, I spun, and saw him. Black clothing. No markings. No expression. Not wearing a mask, which somehow made it worse. Because he didn't care if I saw his face. That meant one thing. He didn't expect me to survive. Daniel was already moving, not toward me, toward the attacker. He didn't speak, didn't hesitate, just closed the distance in a single step. The man reacted instantly, turned, blocked. The sound of impact was sharp, clean, not wild, not messy. This wasn't a street fight. This was trained. Both of them. I stepped back slightly, not out of fear, out of awareness, because jumping in blindly would get me killed. Daniel struck again, faster this time, aimed for the neck. The man dodged, countered, a straight hit toward Daniel's ribs. Blocked, redirected. Their movements were efficient, minimal, deadly. No wasted energy, no wasted motion. This wasn't about overpowering. This was about ending it in the shortest time possible. I watched, not frozen, learning, because something became clear within seconds. Daniel wasn't dominating, but he wasn't losing either. They were equal, which meant, if I didn't act, this fight wouldn't end cleanly. The attacker shifted suddenly, changed rhythm. His attention snapped to me, and that's when I realized I was the real target. He broke away from Daniel. Came straight for me. No hesitation, no distraction, direct. I moved. This time, not just reacting. Thinking. The floor, the spacing, the timing. I stepped slightly left. His strike passed, and I did something different. I didn't retreat. I stepped in, closed the distance. His eyes shifted for just a fraction of a second. Surprise. That was enough. I grabbed his wrist, twisted, not perfectly, not cleanly, but enough to disrupt him. He adjusted instantly. Of course he did, but that one moment was all Daniel needed. He moved in from the side. Fast, precise. His hand struck the attacker's neck. Not full force, targeted. The man's body stiffened for a split second. Then, he pulled back, disengaged, not panicked, not desperate, controlled. He took 3 steps back, looked at both of us, and for the first time, he spoke again. Confirmed. My chest tightened. Confirmed what? He adjusted his sleeve, like the fight had already given him what he needed. Then he looked directly at me. Not angry, not impressed, just evaluating. Subject response exceeds baseline. Baseline. That word again. We weren't people to them. We were data. Phase 2 progressing, he continued calmly. Then, he stepped back once more. And just like that, he left. No dramatic exit, no smoke, just gone. I stood there, breathing steady, but my mind racing. He just left, I said. Daniel didn't move, didn't relax. Of course he did, he replied. Why? I asked. He finally looked at me. Because that wasn't an attack. A pause. That was an evaluation. Everything went quiet. Because that meant, we weren't in danger of being killed. Not yet. We were being tested, measured, compared. I clenched my fist slightly. So what now? I asked. Daniel exhaled slowly, then said, now. He looked in the direction the man disappeared. They know what you can do. A pause, and they'll send something stronger. My heartbeat slowed, not fear, preparation, because now, there was no doubt left. This wasn't random, this wasn't personal, this was a system, and we had just passed the first test. I looked at Daniel. Then we don't wait for the next one, I said. A faint smile appeared on his face. Exactly, because if they were testing us, then it was time to start testing them back. We didn't follow him. That would have been stupid. People like that don't run. They reposition. They disappear on purpose. And if we chased him blindly, we'd walk straight into something worse. So instead, we stood still, not frozen, not confused, thinking. The street was quiet again, like nothing had happened. No witnesses, no noise, just us. They're observing patterns, I said finally. Daniel nodded once. They wanted to see how you react under pressure, he added. And now they've logged it. That word again, logged, like I was just another entry in a system. I exhaled slowly. Then we break the pattern. He looked at me. This time, there was something different in his expression. Approval. Exactly, he said, because if they were studying us, then the worst thing we could do was behave predictably. I looked down the street, then back at him. Your plan, I said. He didn't ask which one. He already knew. We don't go to your apartment, he said. That made sense. They expect it, I added. He nodded. So we go somewhere they don't expect. A pause, and we make noise. I frowned slightly. Noise. He turned to face me fully. Not literal noise, he said. Movement, disruption, something they have to respond to. I understood immediately. If we stayed quiet, they controlled the pace, but if we forced movement, we took that control away. How? I asked. He looked at me for a second, then said, we hit one of their observation points. My chest tightened slightly. You know where they are. A faint smile. Not all of them, he said. But enough. That wasn't comforting, but it was enough. He turned and started walking. No hesitation, so I followed. We moved faster this time. Not running, but deliberate, like we had somewhere to be. Where are we going? I asked after a minute. He didn't look back. Somewhere they think is secure. That answer told me everything I needed to know. We weren't hiding anymore. We were attacking. 15 minutes later, we stopped. An office building. Modern. Clean. Too normal. This? I asked. Daniel nodded. They've been using it for remote monitoring, he said. I looked at the building again. Nothing stood out. No guards. No visible security. How do you know? I asked. He glanced at me briefly. Because I've been watching them too. Right. I almost forgot. He wasn't just reacting to this. He'd been in it longer than me. We approached the entrance. Glass doors. Locked. Daniel didn't slow down. He reached into his pocket. Pulled out something small. A card. He swiped it. The door unlocked. I raised an eyebrow. You've been busy. He pushed the door open. You have no idea. We stepped inside. The lobby was empty. Lights on. Screens active. But no people. That wasn't normal. This is too easy, I muttered. Of course it is, Daniel said. That made my chest tighten. It's a trap. He didn't deny it, most likely. And yet, we kept moving. Because stopping now wasn't an option. We took the stairs. No elevator. Too predictable. Second floor. Third. Fourth. Then we stopped at 5. Daniel pushed the door open slowly. The hallway beyond was dark. Too dark. No lights. No sound. I stepped in first. Careful. Every step measured. Then, the lights came on. All at once. Bright. Blinding. I squinted slightly. And froze. Because we weren't alone. 5 people stood at the far end of the hallway. Same as the first one. Black clothing. No expressions. Watching us. Waiting. My pulse slowed. Not fear. Focus. Because now, this wasn't a test. This was escalation. One of them stepped forward. Then spoke. Phase 2 confirmed. A pause. Proceeding to elimination protocol. My eyes narrowed slightly. That was new. Daniel stepped forward slightly, positioning himself beside me. Not in front. Not behind. Beside. Equal. Guess they're done observing, I said quietly. He nodded once. Looks like it. The 5 figures started moving. Slow at first. Then faster. I exhaled slowly. Because this time, there was no doubt. This wasn't a test anymore. This was survival, and if we lost here. I shifted my stance, eyes locked forward, then said quietly, let's see what phase 2 really means. And then, they came. They didn't rush us, not at first, that was the worst part. They walked, slow, measured, perfectly in sync, like they already knew how this would end. Like this wasn't a fight, just a procedure. I adjusted my stance, lowered my center. 5 of them, 2 of us, bad odds, but numbers didn't matter as much as control. And right now, they had it. They're coordinating, I said under my breath. Daniel didn't look at me. Didn't need to. I see it, he replied. Of course he did. Their spacing was intentional. No overlap, no gaps, each one covering an angle. No blind spots. They've done this before, I added. Daniel nodded slightly. Many times. That meant one thing. We weren't their first targets. The one in front stepped closer. Stopped about 10 feet away. The others fanned out behind him. Then he spoke. Final assessment begins. Final. So this was it. No more testing. No more observation. Just results. Stick to movement, Daniel said quietly. Don't get surrounded. I didn't answer. I moved. Because waiting would get me killed. The moment I stepped forward, they reacted. Not 1, not 2, all 5. They split instantly. 2 went for Daniel. 3 came for me. Fast. Too fast for hesitation. The first strike came from the left. A low sweep aimed to take my legs. I jumped back. Barely. The second came immediately after. From the right, a straight strike toward my throat. I tilted sideways. Felt it brush past. No pause. No delay. The third attacker moved in. Direct. Closing the distance. They weren't giving me space. They were compressing it. I stepped back again, and hit the wall. Damn, that was fast. Don't retreat in a straight line. Daniel shouted. Too late. The third attacker lunged. I shifted sideways at the last second. Slid along the wall. His strike hit where I was standing. Hard. The wall cracked. Not human strength. Enhanced. That confirmed it. They weren't normal. I didn't think. I adapted. Instead of pulling away, I stepped forward. Closed the gap again. Same move as before. Unexpected. The attacker's eyes flickered. Just slightly. That was enough. I grabbed his arm. Twisted. But this time, he resisted instantly. Stronger. Faster. His other hand came up. Aimed for my chest. Before it could land, Daniel was there. He intercepted. Redirected the strike. Focus. He snapped. I pulled back. Repositioned. Now we stood side by side. 2 against 5. But this time, we weren't separated. They adapt quickly, I said. So do we, Daniel replied. One of them stepped forward again. Then spoke. Resistance exceeds projection. Another voice followed. Adjusting parameters. My chest tightened. Parameters. They weren't just fighting us. They were updating mid-fight. That meant, every move we made, was being analyzed in real time. They're learning, I said. Daniel nodded once. Then we stopped giving them clean data. That meant one thing. Unpredictability. Follow my lead, he said. I didn't argue. He moved first. Not toward them. Toward the side wall. I followed instantly. The attackers reacted, but not fast enough. Daniel grabbed a loose panel. Ripped it free. And threw it. Not at them. At the lights. The hallway plunged into darkness. Again. This time, we were ready. Split, he said quietly. I moved left. He moved right. Now the fight changed. No clear targets. No clean visuals. Only movement. Sound. Instinct. One of them lunged toward me again. I stepped aside, and this time, I didn't hesitate. I struck. Not perfectly. Not cleanly. But unpredictably. He didn't dodge completely. The hit landed. Small. But real. For the first time, they weren't in control. A voice cut through the darkness. Data inconsistency detected. Another added. Recalibrating. I smiled slightly. Because now, they weren't just testing us. We were breaking their system. Daniel's voice came from the dark. Now you get it. Yeah, I did. This wasn't about winning the fight. It was about becoming something they couldn't predict. And if we could do that, then maybe, just maybe, we could survive long enough to turn this entire game upside down. Darkness became our ally. For the first time since this started, we weren't the ones being watched. We were the ones deciding what could be seen. Footsteps echoed. Not random, not chaotic, controlled. They were still moving in formation. Even without sight, that told me everything. They're not relying on vision, I whispered. Daniel's voice came from somewhere to my right. I know, which meant, this wasn't over just because the lights were gone. A shift in air. Behind me, I moved instantly. Not backward, not sideways, forward. The strike passed behind me. Close, too close. I didn't stop. I kept moving, because stopping meant giving them a position. Another presence. Left side. This time, I dropped low. The attack cut above me. And for a split second, there was an opening. I took it. I drove forward, not aiming to win, not aiming to overpower, just to disrupt. My shoulder slammed into one of them. Solid, heavy, not like hitting a normal person. But it moved him, just enough. A break in formation. That was the first crack. Good, Daniel said. Then everything sped up. They reacted. Fast. Too fast. The formation shifted instantly. They adapted. But now, they weren't perfect anymore. Because that one disruption forced them to adjust. And adjustment creates delay. One came at me again. This time, I didn't evade. I stepped into it. Again. But this time, I changed the rhythm. Instead of grabbing, I struck low. Unexpected. He reacted. But not fast enough. The hit landed. Not strong. Not decisive. But enough to stagger. Deviation increasing, one of them said. Another voice. Stability compromised. I felt it. We were getting to them. Not physically. Systematically. Daniel moved again. Faster than before. I heard impact. Sharp. Then another. One of them hit the ground. Not out, but down. That's it, Daniel said. Don't let them reset. I didn't hesitate. Because now, I understood. This wasn't about strength. This was about breaking their rhythm. Another attacker came in, but this time, I was ready. I didn't wait. I moved first, closed the distance, struck high, then low, then shifted sideways. No pattern, no repetition, just movement, instinct. He blocked the first, adjusted to the second, but the third caught him off guard. A clean hit. He stumbled, and for the first time, I saw it. Hesitation, not human, but real. Air threshold exceeded, one of them said. Another voice followed, requesting override. Daniel froze for half a second. Override, I muttered. Then, everything changed. A sharp sound, like something activating, not external, internal. The attackers stopped moving, all at once. Perfect stillness. Then, they moved again. Faster, stronger, more precise. My chest tightened. They just leveled up, I said. Daniel's voice was sharp. Fall back. We stepped back together. This wasn't the same fight anymore. Their movements were cleaner, more efficient, less hesitation. They removed the limiters, Daniel said. That explained it. They weren't holding back before. They were restricted, and now, they weren't. One of them moved. I barely saw it. He closed the distance instantly. Too fast to react normally. I raised my arm. Impact. Pain shot through me. Real, not controlled. I was thrown back, hit the wall hard. Air left my lungs. This wasn't a test anymore. This was elimination. Get up, Daniel snapped. I forced myself up, ignoring the pain, because if I stayed down, I was dead. Daniel was already fighting two of them, holding them back, but even he was being pushed. This was bad, worse than before. I steadied myself. Focused, because now, there was only one option left. We didn't just need to break their system. We needed to survive something that wasn't supposed to be beaten. I wiped the blood from my lip, looked at them again, then said quietly, guess this is where it gets real. Daniel didn't answer. He didn't need to, because we both knew, if we didn't figure something out. Right now, pain sharpened everything, not dulled it, not slowed it, focused it. My breathing steadied, my vision cleared, the fear, gone, replaced by something colder, understanding. They weren't holding back anymore. So neither could we. One of them came at me again. Faster than before. Cleaner. No wasted motion. No hesitation. This time, I didn't try to match it. I stepped offline. Not away. Not back. Aside. His strike cut past my shoulder. Close enough to feel the heat of it. I didn't counter immediately. That was the mistake they expected. Instead, I kept moving. Circling. Breaking the angle. Forcing him to turn. Forcing him to adjust. Daniel's voice cut through the chaos. Don't meet them head on. I already knew that, because meeting them directly meant losing. Another one closed in from my blind side. I heard it, felt it, didn't look. I dropped low, rolled forward. The strike passed above me. Barely. I came up on the other side. Now they had to turn again. Recalculate. That was it. That tiny delay. That was where we lived. I glanced at Daniel. He was holding two of them back. Barely. His movements were still precise. Still controlled. But now, there was strain. Even he couldn't keep this up forever. Daniel, I called out. He didn't respond. Too busy. Then I saw it. The device, still clipped to his side. The tracker. An idea hit me. Not clean, not safe, but necessary. I moved, not toward the attackers, toward him. They noticed. Of course they did. Two of them shifted direction instantly. Intercepting. I accelerated, ignoring the risk. One lunged. I ducked. Another struck. I took it. Pain exploded across my side. But I didn't stop. I reached Daniel, grabbed the device, and ripped it free. What are you doing? He snapped. No more hiding, I said. Before he could stop me, I slammed it onto the ground. Hard. The screen flickered, glitched, then stabilized. The dots expanded, not just around us, beyond. More signals, more movement. Daniel saw it instantly. You forced a full scan, he said. I nodded. They're not just here, I said. They're everywhere. That changed everything, because this wasn't a small operation. This was a network, and we were standing right in the middle of it. One of the attackers moved again. Faster than before. Daniel intercepted, but this time, he didn't just block. He redirected, and used their momentum against them. The attacker slammed into the wall. Hard. Cracks spread across the surface. He didn't get up immediately. That was new. They can be overwhelmed, Daniel said. Not defeated, but overwhelmed. That was enough. I stepped forward again, but this time, I changed everything. No rhythm, no structure, just chaos. I moved unpredictably, struck from angles that didn't make sense. Changed pace mid-motion. Even I didn't fully know what I was doing. And that was the point. One of them tried to adapt, but hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. I hit him, not hard, but clean. He staggered. Another one moved in, but collided with him. Their coordination broke. That's it, Daniel said. Keep breaking it. We pushed forward, not retreating anymore, not surviving, fighting. Another hit, another disruption. Their movements became less perfect, less synchronized, still dangerous, still lethal, but no longer flawless. Then, something shifted. They stopped, all three of them, at the same time. Perfect stillness. Again, my chest tightened. Not again, I muttered. Daniel's voice was low, They're switching tactics. That didn't sound good. One of them stepped forward. Then spoke. Adaptation threshold reached. A pause. Deploying final measure. The air changed. Heavier. Denser. And then, they moved. Not faster. Not stronger. Something worse. They moved. Perfectly. No hesitation. No delay. Every step aligned. Every motion calculated. Not reacting anymore. Predicting. My body froze for half a second. Because now, they weren't learning from us. They had already learned everything they needed. Daniel, I said quietly. He didn't respond, but I already knew. This was the real test, and if we failed here, there wouldn't be anything left to learn. Only the end. They moved before I could think. Not fast, not aggressive, perfect. That was worse, because speed can be reacted to. Strength can be countered, but perfection leaves no room to survive. The first one stepped in. I tried to shift, but he was already there. Like he knew where I'd move before I did. A strike came toward my chest. I blocked, but it still landed. Not clean, not full force, but enough. Pain shot through me. My body staggered. They're predicting, I said through my teeth. Daniel didn't answer, because he was dealing with the same thing. I saw it. For the first time, he was losing ground. Not by much, but enough. Every move he made, they countered before it fully formed. Like they could see the future. No, not the future. Patterns. They had learned us. Completely. I forced myself to move again. No hesitation, no delay, but it didn't matter. The moment I shifted, they adjusted. I stepped left. They cut me off. I dropped low. They were already there. Every option closed. My chest tightened. This was it. This was the gap. The difference between us and them. They adapted, but we were still reacting. Another strike came. I raised my arm. Too slow. Impact. Everything went white for a second. I hit the ground hard. Air gone. Vision blurred. For a moment, I couldn't move. Footsteps approached. Steady. Unstoppable. Subject reaching failure threshold, one of them said. Another voice, proceeding with termination. So this was how it ended. Not dramatic, not meaningful, just a result. My fingers curled slightly, not in resistance, in frustration, because I understood it now. Too late. We were never meant to win this. We were meant to reach this point. To be measured, compared, and then, discarded. The attacker stepped closer, raised his hand, a final strike. Then, Daniel moved, not to attack, not to block. He moved, toward me, and did something I didn't expect. He grabbed my collar, and pulled me back, hard. The strike missed, barely. What are you doing? I snapped. He didn't answer. Instead, he dragged me further back. Toward the wall, toward the corner. I realized it instantly. No, I said, but he ignored me. He reached behind us, pressed something. A panel in the wall slid open. A hidden exit. Go, he said. I froze. What? G.O. That wasn't a suggestion. That was an order. No, I said immediately. His eyes locked onto mine. For the first time, there was no calm, only urgency. You're the one they want, he said. My chest tightened. What? He didn't look away. They don't care about me, he continued. They care about what you are. The words hit harder than any strike. Because deep down, I already knew. They let you come back, he said. They're watching what you become. A pause, and if you die here. His voice dropped. Then this was all pointless. I clenched my fists. What about you? He smiled. Not cold, not calculated, real. I was never part of the experiment, he said. A pause. I was the mistake. Before I could respond, he shoved me, hard. I stumbled backward, into the hidden passage. No, I started, but the panel slid shut, cutting me off, sealing him in. Silence. Complete. I stood there, frozen, because for the first time since this started, I was alone. My chest tightened, my hands clenched, because now I understood something I didn't before. This wasn't just a test. This was selection, and Daniel just chose me to survive. Behind the wall, I heard it, the fight continuing, harder, louder, then, a single, heavy impact. In silence, my breathing stopped, because deep down, I already knew what that meant. I closed my eyes for a second, then opened them, because there was no time to stand still, no time to process, only one thing left to do. Survive, and find out the truth. They were willing to kill him to protect. Then come back, and finish this. The passage was narrow, too narrow, concrete walls, no lights, only a faint strip along the floor guiding the way forward. I didn't hesitate. I ran, not blindly, not panicked, focused, because stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant remembering what just happened. I couldn't afford that, not now. The path stretched longer than it should have. Straight, then a turn, then another, like a maze designed for one purpose. To separate me from the fight. From Daniel, from the truth. My jaw tightened. No, that wasn't happening. I kept moving. Then, the floor shifted. A soft click. I stopped instantly. Too late. The ground beneath me gave way. And I dropped. Hard. The impact knocked the air out of me. Pain shot through my back. But I forced myself up. Fast. Because I knew what this was. Another test. The room I landed in was different. Not concrete. Not empty. Bright. White. Too clean. Too perfect. And in the center, a chair. No restraints. No chains. Just waiting. I didn't move toward it. Instead, I scanned the room. Walls. Seamless. Ceiling. No visible openings. No exits. Of course. Then, a voice. Not distorted this time. Clear. Human. Welcome back. My body went still. Because that voice. It wasn't unfamiliar. Who are you? I asked. Silence. Then, a screen lit up on the wall. And what I saw made everything stop. It was me, not now, before, standing in a room just like this one. Talking. I'm ready, the version of me on the screen said. My chest tightened. What is this? I muttered. The recording continued. Daniel was there too, standing across from me. You don't have to do this, he said in the recording. My past self smiled slightly. I do, he replied. A pause. They're not going to stop unless someone breaks it. Daniel shook his head. This isn't breaking it, he said. This is walking into it. My past self stepped forward, closer to the chair. Then I'll walk into it, he said. Silence. Then, Daniel spoke again. If you do this, a pause, you won't come back the same. My past self stopped, just for a second, then said, I don't need to come back the same. Another pause. I just need to come back. The recording cut. The room went silent again. But my mind didn't, because now, everything shifted. I wasn't brought back. I chose to come back. This wasn't random. This wasn't an accident. This was a decision. My decision. I looked at the chair again, at the center of the room. And suddenly, it didn't look like a trap anymore. It looked like a continuation. What did I do? I asked quietly. The voice responded immediately this time. You initiated phase 2. My chest tightened. And phase 1. I asked. A pause. Then, observation. Of course. I exhaled slowly. In this? I asked, looking at the chair. Silence. Then, completion. My fingers curled slightly. Completion. So this was it. The end of the process. The thing my past self walked into willingly. I looked back at the screen. At the frozen image of myself. Calm. Certain. What happens if I sit? I asked. The answer came without delay. You become what you were meant to be. That wasn't an answer. That was a threat. I stepped closer, slowly, because now, I understood something I didn't before. They weren't just testing me. They were finishing something I started. And if I walked away now, then everything, Daniel's sacrifice, my death, all of it, would mean nothing. I stopped in front of the chair, stared at it, for a long moment, then I said quietly, one more question. The voice waited. What happens if I refuse? Silence. Longer this time. Then you remain incomplete. A pause, and you die. Simple, direct, expected. I let out a slow breath. Then, I sat down. The moment I did, everything went black. Not like before, not like losing consciousness. This was different. This was remembering. And what I saw next wasn't something I was supposed to forget. It was something I chose to erase. And now, it was coming back. All of it. Darkness didn't feel empty anymore. It felt crowded, like something was standing inside it with me, watching, waiting for me to remember. Then the first image came. Not slow, not gentle. It hit like impact. A hallway, white lights, too clean, too controlled. And me, standing in it. Not confused, not afraid, certain. I was holding a file. And Daniel was walking beside me. Alive. My chest tightened immediately, because I had seen him fall. I had heard it. I had accepted it. So why was he here? The memory shifted. We were arguing. Not loudly. Controlled tension. The kind that comes when both sides already understand the truth, but refuse to accept it. You can still walk away, Daniel said in the memory. I laughed once. Not humor. Defiance. You don't understand, I said. I already did. He stopped walking. That was rare. What do you mean? He asked. And I remember my answer clearly. Too clearly. I'm already inside it. The memory flickered. A door opened ahead of us. Behind it, not a room, a system, screens, data, people watching from somewhere unseen. And I walked in first. Willingly. The memory jumped again. This time I was sitting in a chair. Not the one I just sat in. Different room. Same design. Daniel stood in front of me, hesitating. For the first time, you don't have to go through with this, he said again. But this time, his voice wasn't firm. It was uncertain. I looked at him, and I said something I didn't recognize at first. Until I realized, it was mine. If I don't, someone else will. Silence. Then Daniel shook his head slightly. That's not how this ends, he said. I stood up in the memory. Walked past him, and the system accepted me. No struggle, no resistance, just recognition. Then everything fractured. The memory broke like glass. And I was falling again. Not physically, mentally, through layers of something deeper than thought. And then I heard it. Not a voice, a pattern, a structure forming around me. You initiated continuity protocol. My breath hitched. Continuity. The voice continued. Subject identity preserved. Memory partition restored. Override sequence active. My head pounded. Because I was starting to understand. I didn't just die. I was processed, erased, then rebuilt. And something went wrong in the rebuilding. That's why I came back different. Not clean, not complete. A fracture, a deviation, a mistake they couldn't predict. The darkness shifted again, and suddenly I wasn't alone in it. Daniel was there, but not how I remembered him. Not alive, not dead, something in between. You saw it, he said quietly. I tried to speak, but nothing came out. You chose it, he added. My mind fought against it. But the memory didn't lie. I had chosen it. Why? I finally managed. Daniel looked at me for a long time. Then said the thing that made everything collapse inward again. Because you wanted to be the one who could survive what they built. Silence. Then the truth settled in fully. Heavy, unavoidable. I wasn't brought back by accident. I wasn't revived as a victim. I was reconstructed as an outcome. A controlled variable that failed to behave correctly. A system deviation they couldn't finalize. That's why they were testing me. That's why they were watching. That's why they escalated everything. Because I wasn't supposed to exist like this. The memory faded slightly, but before it disappeared completely, Daniel stepped closer and said something softer, almost human. You're not supposed to remember all of it yet. I looked at him, struggling to hold on to the fragments. Yet, I repeated. He nodded once. Because when you do, a pause, you won't be on their side anymore. The darkness cracked again, and something new started forming beneath it. Not memory, not illusion, a decision, and for the first time since I woke up in this second life, I realized the real war wasn't outside me. It was inside me, between what I was told I am, and what I actually chose to become. And somewhere far beyond that, something was waiting for me to finish remembering. The moment the last fragment locked into place, everything stopped fighting me. No more resistance, no more fog, no more missing time, just clarity, cold, clean, absolute. I understood it now, not partially, not in pieces, fully. I wasn't brought back. I was recompiled, a controlled reconstruction of a subject who had already crossed the line once before. The chair, the system, the protocols, Daniel, even the attackers, none of it was random. It was structured, layered, designed, and I was at the center of it. Footsteps echoed in the white room again. But this time, I didn't turn immediately. I already knew who it was. Daniel stepped into view, alive, present, no distortion, no illusion, real. So it's done, he said quietly. I nodded once. I remember. Silence stretched between us, not uncomfortable, just heavy, like the air itself understood what changed. Daniel looked at me for a long moment, then asked the question that mattered most. What are you going to do now? I almost answered quickly, almost, but something inside me stopped it. Because now I could see the full structure behind everything. The observation system, the phase, design, the agents, the tests, even Daniel's role in it. None of it was about survival. Not really, it was about containment. I wasn't meant to escape. I was meant to be understood until I could be controlled again. I looked at Daniel, and for the first time, I saw him clearly, not as a lie, not as enemy, but as a decision that had already been made for me. You helped them, I said calmly. Not accusation, just fact. Daniel didn't deny it. No. A pause. Then he added, I stopped them from deleting you completely. That landed differently than I expected. Because now I understood the line he stood on. Not on either side, but between systems, trying to hold something unstable together long enough for it not to collapse. Me. I exhaled slowly. So what am I supposed to be? Daniel stepped closer. Not what they designed. Another pause. Then softer. And not what you were before either. That was the truth I didn't want. But it was the only one that fit. The room around us began to flicker. The white space breaking at the edges. Like the system itself was realizing the process had completed. Daniel glanced around once. They'll close this instance soon. I nodded. I know. He studied me one last time. Then said something unexpected. If you leave now, you don't go back to anything normal. I almost laughed. Normal didn't exist in this anymore. It never did. I never had normal, I said. A faint pause. Then Daniel gave a small nod. Like he accepted that answer long before I said it. The exit behind him began to open. Not a door, a fracture, a separation point between states. Between systems, between versions of reality. Before he stepped away, he said one final thing. They're going to look for you again. I met his eyes. Let them. For the first time, he actually smiled. Not the controlled one, not the careful one, a real one. Then don't be predictable, he said. I turned toward the exit. The fractured light spilling forward. Behind me, Daniel spoke again, quieter this time. If you ever remember everything fully, you won't be the same person standing here. I stopped just before crossing. Looked back once. I already remembered everything I needed, I said. Then I stepped forward, and the system behind me collapsed like a sealed door finally shutting. Not an ending, not a reset, a release. Somewhere far away, the watchers logged a final line. Subject. Unstable, active, uncontained. But I was already gone from their frame. Not lost, not erased, untracked, and for the first time since all of this began, I wasn't being observed. I was moving freely, not as their subject, not as their mistake, not as their design, as something they could no longer classify. Something that chose itself. And somewhere in the silence that followed, I finally understood the truth. They never brought me back to live again. They brought me back, because I refused to stay dead the first time. And now, I wasn't going back, not for them, not for Daniel, not for the system, for myself. I walked forward, and the world stopped being a test. It became something new, unknown, unwritten, and mine.